The biggest what if for Michigan State of the upcoming season, I think it's on the defensive side of the ball. We'll see if I'm right.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week as we get closer and closer to kickoff, just 15 days if you're listening on Thursday, of course. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube what your biggest what if of the upcoming season is. And also, if there's any depth chart battles you want to hear a little more about, comment below on YouTube. We will be getting into depth chart talk with our guests. That's right. It's not just me rambling on and on this episode. Justin Thind of 24/7 Sports. You already know who he is if you pay even the slightest bit of attention to Michigan State athletics. JT is our guy over here. So it's going to be a great conversation with him, not just today, but also tomorrow. So be sure to swing back around tomorrow to end your week with, hey, us here at Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white, but also Justin Thind. So, all right, I'll stop wasting everyone's time. Let's get to our guy, JT. Folks, the man, the myth, the legend, of course, you know who I'm talking about, Justin Thind of 24/7 Sports. He joins us for a rousing conversation about Michigan State football. JT, we're going to kick off the conversation right here because there's a lot of question marks going into the season. Let's just walk out one of them right now. The biggest realistic what if of the upcoming season. Of course, we're using realistic with a capital R and a capital E-listic. Of course, you know, we want Aiden Childs. What if he becomes Cam Newton this season? Within the realm of possibility. And I'm going to start here because I think the biggest realistic what if is actually on the defensive side of the ball on that defensive line. And it is what if Alex VanSumeren and Ben Roberts blossom as the 4 stars that they are. And I think it's realistic because it's not like we're talking about 4th or 5th year players where we know who they are at this point. All right. These are guys that are relatively unknown. Ben Roberts, less than 40 snaps played on the defensive side of the ball for Oregon. Alex VanSumeren, okay, 4-star, top-rated kid in Michigan State's class a few years ago, but back-to-back knee injuries, he really has yet to sniff the field. So what are we even going to get? Now, the what if really becomes realistic, too. It's not just, what their ceiling is. They're both young players, but what we've been hearing, whether it's on the record or off the record, about what has been going on at practice, the scrimmage that just happened less than a week ago, it seems that these guys are really coming along, and this could be a realistic possibility that these guys are strong players. Of course, that would raise the ceiling for what this defensive line group is. I still assume that Maverick Hansen, Daquan Dowse will be your starters, but man, if you could have 4 legitimate guys in that defensive line, look, in a conference where running the ball is top priority for a lot of offenses, that is going to be massive for Michigan State if those 2 guys can be who they are this upcoming season. God, I mean, do you have the same one, or are you on different sides of the ball? Where are you for the
before I kind of give my answer, there's one thing I wanted to reinforce with what you're saying is one of the things, I guess, for Michigan State fans, like they've been hearing Alex VanSumeren's name since he was a junior in high school. So the name has been in their heads for 4 years and they haven't seen him. And there might be this kind of connotation of, all right, he might have been a disappointment so far. He might have been a bust. People need to remember when he was a signee, we, like Corey and I, we were telling everybody he plays in a poor competition area. He has all the tools, but we think it's going to take him until his 3rd year on campus for him to contribute. Gotcha. So his redshirt sophomore year. And that's the year that this is. So this is, I mean, we'll see how the knee injuries affected anything, right? But he's technically on time. Like, we did not expect him to do anything before this season anyway. And it wasn't until the 2025 season after this is the first time we thought he might break into the starting role. So he's really on a regular timeline, and all that we're kind of banking on when you say that is hopefully the knee injuries didn't slow down his progress. But he hasn't been a disappointment. He's just been on time other than the injuries.
That's what we've been just crying from the mountaintops to everyone. Kind of like how Jonathan Smith is trying it with Aiden Childs, like, all right, be patient. Like, when it comes to Alex VanSumeren, for anyone that doesn't know, it has been 2 big knee injuries. These aren't scrapes. These aren't boo-boos. These knocked him out for the last 2 seasons. So, yes, he did come in here with a borderline top 200 rating in the entire country. But not only is that an injury, and who knows if he will be 100% or even 80%, whatever that is, that's 2 years of development that he's just missed on the sidelines. But man, has it been hard to mute those sounds and the excitement with what we've been hearing coming out of camp. So it is a realistic possibility. Ben Roberts, look, that guy was just backlogged over at Oregon.
Yep.
They got some talent over there. Like, we're going to forgive the guy for not getting on the field too often in his first 2 years over there in Eugene. But I don't know, man. Like, that is very exciting that you could have 4 legitimate guys. Now, I'm going back a few weeks here. What Maverick Hansen said, he said that there are 7 guys that are ready to play right now.
He said 8. He said 8.
He said 8 to go. I mean, it was a sky high number, and I heard that, and I was like, you know what? I love the optimism. I'm not going to call the kid a liar, but like, I have a hard time believing that. But like, let's all dream. Maybe it's not too far from the truth. Like, you add Jalen Satchel, the other Old Dominion transfer, going along with Wayne Matthews, a linebacker, of course, but Ben Nelson. Our guy, JT, Ben Nelson, a former offensive lineman walk-on who got defensive tackle snaps last year.
Yes.
And we've also been hearing good things about Mike Schunbeeler, true freshman. Now, I'm going to pump the brakes. Like, I'm not going to go full out and say, you know what, Mike Shun's going to be, competing for the starting role here. But even if he's adequate, okay, like, that's 7 names right there. Look, I'm just, speaking it into existence where this could eventually be true. I think right now 4 is a realistic number that you can shoot for. But
I think the key to having a good defensive tackle rotation is having a second unit that isn't a huge drop-off, which if Roberts and AVS can provide, that'd be huge. And then after that, it's just having a decent buffer before you get to your walk-ons. So if you're guys like Jalen Satchel and Raquan Buckley or Mike Schunbeeler, if they're a step ahead of the walk-ons and provide you warm bodies before you have to use those walk-ons, that's really all you can ask for after that. But if those first 2 lines can rotate consistently, keep each other fresh without being a huge drop-off, I think they'd be in great shape. That is definitely one of the things that I'm watching for. It was my second biggest concern looking at the roster behind the lack of offensive tackle depth. And so I guess kind of pivoting to my answer to your question here is, what if the offensive tackles stay healthy and Coach M actually improves these guys' technique from where it was last year?
Now we're having fun. Now we're having a good time. Yep.
Because I like how the interior of the offensive line looks as it is. There was going to be some uncertainty if Luke Newman had to play tackle. It doesn't seem like that's something they're going to have him do. So at guard, I don't really have any worries of how he'll project. It was more so, is he athletic enough to play tackle in the Big Ten? Guard, he should be fine. Tanner Miller, obviously we know he's very good. I think he was a little overrated at Oregon State because of the fact that he got some of the honors he did of all Pac-12 and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is he's going to be an upgrade over Nick Samac and the center play that Michigan State has had for a long time. To the right guard spot, there's a nice battle brewing between Big Dooley, Chris Phillips, and Gavin Brocious. Now, Brocious was another guy, 2022 recruit who I said was very, very underrated, and then he had a knee injury last year. Now, it sounds like from a strength and conditioning perspective, he was absolutely dominant this summer. So he came back from his torn ACL physically in great shape. Now, I don't know where his technique stands, but the fact that it sounds like from all accounts he's doing very well in this battle with Dooley, sounds like the technique side must be there too. So very excited with the interior offensive line. And as I said, with Brocious or Phillips Silver loses that, you're also good in terms of the first backup interior spot there. And then at center, Dallas Fincher can also step in and be a backup there. Maybe Cole Dellinger plays a year earlier than expected to. So interior, I'm okay with. Now, the offensive tackle spot, Ashton Lepo is going to have to be ready no matter what. That's just the fact of the matter. Spencer Brown was not very good, and him moving on was probably good for both parties. Because Ethan Boyd was probably going to be the guy that stepped in and replaced him anyway. Now, Ethan Boyd, he semi-retired, missed all of spring camp, and then decided not to retire, enter the portal, went to Colorado. Now he's at Utah State. So he I guess, quit football, but it might still be lingering around in the sport. So now you're suddenly going to the guy who last year was your third right tackle. He's suddenly thrust into the starting spot, and there's no other choice for Coach M to really go with anyone else, because that speaks to the point of why I went with the offensive tackles need to stay healthy, because there's nobody behind them. And I think Lepo can do it. I think he can hang around at the right tackle level at the Big Ten this year. I have very high hopes for him long-term, but I think this is a year before maybe where he was supposed to start. But he changed his body so quickly in such dramatic fashion that it kind of speaks to how he's willing to lock in learn the craft and kind of just work in the kitchen in addition to on the field. So if you're looking at, all right, if Ashton Lepo can pan out, then Brandon Baldwin, we kind of know what he is. He's physically limited. I don't think he was necessarily worse than Spencer Brown. I think you could say as good or better. So you have a little bit of a known commodity who's underwhelming, but I think you can make that all work. Those 5 guys, if Ashton Lepo mostly pans out this year, I think that 5-man group is okay. And 1 or 2 injuries on the inside can be sustained, but I don't think you can sustain any injuries at offensive tackle whatsoever, because you're looking at a Stanton Ramel coming in as a redshirt freshman who's coming right off of a torn ACL as the first guy in, probably. Maybe Andrew Dennis, who's, again, a true freshman who just transferred in from Illinois after he spent a couple months there where they had him repping at center, where he might be your first guy in at right tackle. So I don't know. It's shaky. But again, if the offensive tackles can stay healthy and Coach M gets these guys to play a little bit better than we're expecting, suddenly a lot of options are on the table for the offense to thrive in terms of run game, time for Childs to throw, the routes being developed. Then it could get fun.
Plenty more to come with our guy, Justin Thin. But first, guys, need to talk your ears off about Gametime, my favorite ticketing app out there. And I've talked up and down about Gametime for the last few weeks, months, years, or however long you've been listening to this. And you know I love them for how much money they can save you. But let's talk about something different, not just the flash deals, not just last-minute ticket deals, but the Gametime guarantee. All right, you're always going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section, the same row for less, well, Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. They also care about you just as a person because they have job loss assurance. Let's say you do lose your job, and my goodness, you need the refund from the big tickets you just bought. Gametime has you covered. Let's say the event, I mean, God willing, is canceled. Like, no one wants to see that. Well, neither does Gametime. They're going to automatically refund you for the event that is canceled and not rescheduled. You also have 24-hour return guarantees. Return your tickets within 24 hours from your purchase. Guys, you're going to get the full credit to your Gametime account. No questions asked. They hook it up over there. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, 24-hour return policy, job loss assurance. Guys, they do it. Like, it's almost too good of an app. It's too good to be true almost. But no, they truly are this great. See it for yourself. Download Gametime today. Create an account and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And before getting back into the mix here with our guy, Justin Thin, hey, thanks a lot for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. Now go ahead, make your second listen Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. Okay, he's going to get you ready, of course, with NIL, the transfer portal, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, and, well, oh yeah, that's right, coming up here, the games. The fun part of following college football. That's right. Do it all here, not just at Locked On Spartans, but also Locked On College Football, wherever you get YouTube and your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's kind of where I was with like my second what if. And I don't know if I've made it crystal clear over the last few weeks, but yeah, like the offensive line is a bit of a concern, specifically the depth. So like the what if is like what if, kind of like Alex VanSumeren, what if Stan Ramel does bounce back from that leg injury? Now, regardless, even for a healthy redshirt freshman, like that's still asking a little bit to, just be that ready at a power 4 level. Let's not get it run. And especially for Andrew Dennis, a guy that's not even a redshirt freshman, like he's just a straight up freshman, an analog freshman. So we'll see if you can get anything out of that should injuries happen. It's inevitable. But to go off on a little tangent here, JT, something we never do when we hop on the microphones together. I'm glad you brought up Ethan Boyd. We have not gotten to that yet. He was at Colorado, as you just said, kind of somewhat retired, went to Colorado, went to Utah State. On a very real note here, I'm not trying to be funny or anything. I wish nothing for the best for this kid because so far in his college career, let's just get a snapshot of the cultures he's been a part of. I don't necessarily think that Michigan State in the time he was here was the healthiest place to be in college football. I think we all know this by now at this point. And then going to Colorado, I'm not going to claim to know everything about what's going on in Boulder, but from a 1,000-yard view, it doesn't seem, again, like the healthiest culture there. So I think he's been at arguably, maybe not even arguably, the worst two cultures you could be in college football. So I'm sure that is skewed his love of the game a little bit. It is great that he is over at Utah State. I hope it goes better over there, and I hope that he finds a newfound love with that game. So just really quick on the Ethan Boyd thing, we don't always talk about transfers, but that is a unique situation, and I know that he's not listening to this, but I certainly hope for the best for that kid.
Is Utah State the program that just had their coach resign?
That is the one, Blake Anderson. But yeah, you know what? At least that has already happened, and it's not going to be happening while he's there. So I mean,
it just occurred to me.
We're really hoping for the best here. The only way to go is up, though, right? at least it's in theory a new slate for that program too. Hopefully, a new slate for his career too. But yeah, just really quick on the Ethan Boyd thing. I just want to be sympathetic to him.
He's always been very, very nice and respectful every time I've interacted with him, and I've never heard anything but good things about him. So definitely echo all of those sentiments.
So when it comes to this depth chart, JT, I mean, we don't know about a ton of the battles or how they're shaking out. What we do know is that, my goodness gracious, Chuck Brantley, like we said last week, he's coming along really well this spring, so much so that at the scrimmage on Saturday, he got the starting reps right there. So is that the position battle that has your eyeballs, or is there another one on this whole either side of the ball that you think is more interesting here, as we are in our second week of camp? Yeah, at the end of our second week of camp, if I'm doing the math right.
Yeah, that the whole defensive back room and how they're all going to line up is definitely the most fun part about trying to figure out where they're going to trend towards as week one comes. But the funny thing about Brantley specifically is my defensive back depth chart that I think I posted about 2 weeks ago now, I specifically accounted for this occurrence. I said there might be reports that come out in the near future that have Charles Brantley as getting the first team reps at corner. However, I believe that is because of the fact that they do not want to hand any new incoming transfer automatic first team reps, other than obviously Ed Woods was going to just win them straight up right away. Yeah. But if someone like a Legend Cavazos, or if somebody like a Jeremiah Hughes was going to come in and earn that starting job, I don't think it would have been in week one, the first before the first scrimmage. Mm-hmm. So now it is possible that Charles Brantley has taken a huge leap, but I expected him to be the first team corner, regardless of if he took him or Chance Rucker, really. Gotcha. Of one of those returning guys were going to have to be supplanted through the course of fall camp, than the new guys just being handed the job without the staff seeing them. So again, that will be something to track. Maybe Brantley's better. Maybe Demetrius Martin has gotten him to unlock better coverage skills, and he's going to be the week one starter. And my theory was just invalid, but that's something that we'll have to wait to find out if that's the case. But beyond that, the most intriguing part to me is who's going to line up in the three spots in the middle of the field, the nickel and the two safety spots. Dylan Tatum, Malik Spencer, Nikai Martinez, all three of those guys can play all three of those spots. Mm-hmm. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of how that pans out. Then you're also looking at Angelo Gross, who's been hurt both of the last two regular seasons. And frankly, he didn't look very good or very mobile in those seasons. But now, what would he look like if he's healthy? What would he look like if he's getting slightly better coaching? The scheme's a little more sound, and he's not on the island so much against a speedy slot receiver all the time. So there's a fourth guy that can be in contention for that middle of the field spot. And then Armorion Smith, whose mom passed away, unfortunately, here in recent days. I'd heard that he had a good spring, and he surprised people last year as a redshirt freshman transferring from Cincinnati. He had some good hits. So obviously he wouldn't be competing for the starting spot, but you're looking at some depth here at safety. Whereas if you would ask me November of last year, that safety room was looking pretty bleak. And then you look at Jaden Mangum leaving, and somehow you're still very optimistic sitting here today.
Right.
So I think that's a very intriguing room, and in a positive sense. So yeah, I mean, I love that battle. What else on the depth chart? The linebacker, I guess. Go ahead. If you have something else you want to say. Yeah.
I mean, it's all on the defensive side of the ball. I feel like the offense is pretty set. So yeah, if you just want to funnel down and go linebackers, by all means, go for it.
The intriguing thing there is the overlap in the style. Pretty much every single one of them, except Wayne Matthews, is more of a run stopping, more of that type of a mold, not somebody who wants playing in space. I know Jordan Hall was good in that regard, but it was more so good because of the relative to the competition. He looked good because the other alternative would be Cal Halliday kind of going out there and covering a running back. But I still wouldn't say that's one of Jordan's strengths. I would say he's definitely more of a traditional Mike linebacker you want between the tackles. Now, again, that's not going to be the role he plays this year because you're going to have Cal Halliday or Jordan Turner manning that Mike spot. but he'd be more of the second choice to go into coverage, but not the top choice. And that's where Wayne Matthews comes in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like Jordan Turner, like he's basically kind of in the Cal Haladay mold. But just the transfer from Wisconsin narrative version of Cal Haladay, really. You're not going to want him to drop in coverage. Now he had a good camp and he had a good scrimmage, it sounds like, but again, it's from tackling between the tackles. So, and then Darius Snow, you don't necessarily know where his health is. Anything is a bonus at this point, I would say. But so from a rotational situational perspective, it's hard to say who the starting linebackers are going to be. Because I say you have to have Wayne Matthews on the field at all times, no matter what, from his coverage abilities.
Yep.
It's hard for me to envision taking Jordan Hall off the field either. So if you're looking at a 2-linebacker nickel formation, do you not have Cal Haladay or Jordan Turner on the field? If you have one of them on the field, it's probably Jordan Hall that goes off, not Wayne Matthews, I would say. And then in the 3-linebacker set, you're still looking at who's ahead of out of the two of Jordan Turner and Cal Haladay. So these are interesting questions, and some of those guys in the middle have more name cachet than you would think a backup would have.
Yeah.
And as a result, do one of them kind of move more over into a situational edge rusher spot? Maybe Jordan Turner just lines up at rush end on a down of maybe a 3rd and 8, where the traditional rush end of Chris Bogle either slides to strong side defensive end or just comes off the field. And I guess just putting a bow on that topic, defensive end, there's not a lot to talk about there in terms of battles, but the one thing is Chris Bogle's probably going to get the rush end spot, and then you're looking at Jalen Thompson and Quindarius Dunnigan on the strong side defensive end spot battling. So I think you probably in the base on like a 1st and 10, you go with Quindarius Dunnigan is your defensive end opposite of Chris Bogle, and Thompson's not on the field. But then as 3rd down approaches, you kick Dunnigan in, and then you go ahead and you bring Thompson in as the defensive end, and I think that's your pass rush configuration for the D-line. So I think that's very intriguing to think about as well.
It's just been so dizzying trying to follow this rush end thing, because over in the spring, hey, it's Jalen Thompson, and then fall camp starts. It's like, kidding. He's out. You know what? It's actually Tyler Gilson, Anthony Jones, or Avery Dunn. Yes. Hey, Jordan Hall is also practicing at this rush end. And then the scrimmage happens, and hey, surprise, surprise, it's Chris Bogle over there. So, like, I'm getting a little dizzy over here just trying to follow it. But nevertheless, they'll just find the best 4 guys to take the field with. It is that simple at the end of the day. But oh man, has it been hard to just try to follow the thread on that whole thing. So I don't know if that's as confusing and dizzying for you as it is for me over there and everyone listening. But nevertheless, it's all going to work itself out, because there is some talent at the rush end / defensive end room there. I'm high on Quindarius Dunnigan, by the way. Like I you know what we've seen from the spring showcase, I know that was just 90 good minutes on Big Ten Network, but solid season last year over at Middle Tennessee State. So I'm hopeful he could be an instant impact player here. JT. You know what? We're gonna hop into the mailbag here really quick. This one is from Marsh. By the way, any questions? LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com. It seems like the overall vibes of this team are extremely high right now compared to this time last year. Do you get the same feel based off of social media team posts, and what do you think it shows for how they can perform this season? It's not a metric. You can't quantify this, but like JT, vibes like are kind of just where they should be right now. I understand that it is the offseason. Everyone is undefeated. Nationwide vibes are probably still high, but I don't know. It just seems like a more less talk, more walk, or dare I say, low ego, high output going into the season here in East Lansing. And I think there's some comfortability in flying under the radar going into this season with this team.
I think part of it is the fact that the expectations are so low with, I think, the Vegas win total at 4.5, that it's kind of a loose environment of playing with house money. And obviously they don't think that. They prepare on a weekly, daily, monthly basis to go and win every game they possibly can. But it's different when you're in year 4 of a 10-year and you're 2 years removed from an 11-2 season, and everyone's anxiously waiting for you to get back there. And your coach has this high pressure contract, and every day on a daily basis, you're wondering, all right, are we going to finally meet expectations that we just set 2 years ago? Or are we going to continue sliding and being one hit wonders? Now it's more so of just new tenure. There's no expectations. Let's get better each and every single day. I don't think it's necessarily tied to the messaging from the head coach. Like, I don't think on a like Mel from like on a social media perspective, like obviously tried to brand himself. Like in terms of messaging with the team, you never really saw any of the flash or flair. I thought, frankly, the criticism from where I would always see was he was way too boring.
Gotcha.
So it's not that like Jonathan Smith is coming in and telling them to be more humble or anything like that. I think it's just more so that the situations are so much more. It's more refreshing for them to just be in the spot than worrying about being one-hit wonders under the previous tenure and that staff.
I would agree. I don't think Jonathan Smith has to humble these guys. Like I think that they got humbled last year, and I think that, you know what, they don't mind after all the we'll call it kerfuffle last year. How about that for a word? Hope that's on your bingo card, everyone. Yeah. All that last year, I think that they don't mind having a little bit of shine, dare I say, expectations, for lack of a better term. Just like you said, like, of course that they are confident in that room, but it's more of like a quiet confidence. I think they're going to surprise people. They don't have to uphold these expectations coming off of a Peach Bowl year, for example, or, you know, oh my God, erasing what they did, missing a bowl game in 2022. And it just kind of, well, of course, spiraled out of control last year. So I think that they are enjoying the calmness right now. Again, like, I'm not in the locker room. I'm not putting the helmet on or going out to practice. I can't say for sure, but that is certainly from the outside what it seems like, just a little calm before the storm. And I think, of course, everyone on that staff kind of mirrors that culture, kind of mirrors that personalities with everything going on inside the locker room. So, yeah, I don't think it's all smoke. I think there is something to that. All right. Yeah, I think that they don't mind flying under the radar here, whether it's the Vegas over-under, whether it's S&P Plus, whether it's just, you know, what goofballs like me are saying, expecting a 7-5 season. I'm sure no one in that locker room would be thrilled to hear that. But, hey, you know what? Just like the old early D'Antonio days, we're gonna be here to surprise people moving forward.
Plus, I think the guys are just genuinely having more fun now, and I'm comparing that to the last time they played regular season games. Not at this time in camp. I'm sure they had. I'm not saying they didn't have fun under Mel Tucker during camp in August of 2023, but the last time they were really out there playing football before, I guess, spring camp was, they were losing to Penn State by 1 billion points at Ford Field, where us that were covering the game weren't even watching the game, sitting there. We were writing articles about the coaching search and Jonathan Smith. And the months prior to that, like going to Iowa and having that win in your hands and you losing it, and just months of losing and letting victory kind of slip through your hands while not even really having a permanent head coach. Harlan Barnett did the best he could, but that was their last experience kind of playing football in a true sense. So anything and everything is better than that. So they're having so much more fun now than where that was. So it's impossible for the vibes to not be naturally just so much more better for them, let alone what they're portraying outwards.
It's just the whiplash from poor Andrew Skofar getting blitzed on by Manny Diaz as they're down 49-0 to fast forward where we are right now. Roughly, what is that, 9 months later, if I'm doing my math somewhat correctly, a little different vibes right now. This team, the players, the program as a whole, us, the fans, hey, listeners, let's care about us here for a second, too. We needed a hard reset. So, yeah, I don't think it's just the players enjoying this offseason, enjoying flying someone under the radar. Like, let's think about us for a little bit here. Come on, we've earned this, too. So, I think that there is something to that, and it kind of brings a piece going into this season. JT, I hope you've had a lot of fun chatting here, because guess what, everyone? You got some more of them coming up here in a hot second. Oh, that's right. What's better than one conversation with JT? It's two, folks. The rest of that coming tomorrow here on Locked on Spartans, your team in green and white. But until then, hey, love you all. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you guys in a hot second. Go Green.